Hi, scary lovers. Today it's already time for our penultimate part from this story. Please like and subscribe if you're into scary stories like me. As Sarah, Mark, and Claire moved through the woods, the air grew heavier with tension. They had gathered enough supplies to sustain the group for a while, but unease settled in as they made their way back to the church. "Do you think everything's okay?" Claire asked, glancing back at the path they had come from. "I hope so," Sarah replied, but the knot in her stomach tightened. Eli and the others should have been able to hold their ground. When they finally approached the church, a sense of dread washed over them. The doors hung open, swaying slightly in the breeze. "Something doesn't feel right," Mark said, his voice low. "Stay alert," Sarah whispered, gripping her flashlight tightly. They stepped cautiously inside, the familiar interior now shrouded in an unsettling silence. "Eli," Sarah called out, her voice echoing in the empty space. No response came. They moved deeper into the church, scanning the pews and the altar. Signs of a struggle were everywhere. Upturned chairs, scattered supplies, and deep gouges in the wooden floor. "Look," Claire pointed to a blood-stained wall. There was definitely a fight here. Sarah's heart raced. "We need to find out what happened." As they reached the main hall, they heard distant shuffling and low moans. Panic surged through her. "Zombies! We have to get out of here." They turned to leave but paused as the sounds grew louder. Shadows flickered through the windows, and Sarah felt her blood run cold. "We need to find Eli and the others," Mark insisted. "They might still be here." "We don't have time," Claire urged, fear creeping into her voice. "We need to escape now." Just then, a loud crash echoed from behind the altar, and a group of zombies staggered into view, their vacant eyes locked onto the three of them. "Run!" Sarah shouted, and they bolted toward the door. They barreled outside, hearts pounding, but as they reached the entrance, they saw more zombies spilling out from the woods, drawn by the commotion. "Back inside!" Mark yelled, urgency in his tone. They rushed back into the church, slamming the door shut behind them. Creaked ominously, but for now it held. "We need a plan," Sarah said, breathing heavily. "Where's Eli? Where did everyone go?" "Maybe they escaped to the basement or the back rooms," Claire suggested, glancing around frantically. "Let's check the basement," Mark said. "If they're still here, that's where they might be hiding." They hurried to the back of the church, finding the door leading to the basement. It was slightly ajar, and Sarah pushed it open, revealing a dark staircase descending into the gloom. "Stay close," she said, shining her flashlight down the steps. They descended cautiously, the air growing cooler and mustier with each step. At the bottom, they entered a small room lined with shelves filled with old supplies. "Eli? Anyone?" Sarah called, but only silence greeted them. Mark moved to a nearby window, peering out. "I can't see anything," he murmured. "It's too dark." Suddenly, they heard shuffling above them. The sound of dragging footsteps echoed through the floorboards. "Zombies are still up there," Claire whispered, fear in her eyes. "Let's look for another way out," Sarah urged, scanning the basement for an exit. They found a small window near the far wall, barely big enough to squeeze through. "If we can get outside, we might have a chance to escape," Mark said. "Let's do it," Sarah replied. They moved quickly, working together to clear debris around the window. As they pushed the window open, the sounds of moaning grew louder from above. "Hurry," Claire urged, squeezing through first. Once outside, Sarah and Mark followed, landing in a tangle of weeds and dirt. They quickly gathered themselves and took stock of their surroundings. "Where do we go?" Mark asked, scanning the area. The woods loomed ahead, dark and thick. "We can't head back to the road," Sarah said, anxiety creeping back in. "We'll just lead them right to us. We need to find cover." "Over there," Claire pointed to a thicket of trees nearby. "We can hide there until we figure out what to do." They dashed toward the thicket, adrenaline fueling their escape. Once they reached the trees, they crouched low, hearts racing. "What now?" Mark whispered, glancing back toward the church. The sounds of zombies echoed, but it seemed they hadn't yet discovered their escape. "We need to find Eli and the others," Sarah insisted. "They must have gotten out somehow." "Let's move deeper into the woods," Claire suggested. "If we're careful, we might be able to find a safe spot to regroup." They began to navigate through the underbrush, staying silent and alert. Each rustle of leaves or snap of a twig sent their hearts racing. But they pressed on, determined to find their friends. As they made their way deeper into the forest, the daylight began to fade, casting long shadows on the ground. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on them. "Do you think we'll find them?" Claire asked, worry evident in her voice. "I have to believe we will," Sarah replied, trying to stay hopeful. "They're resourceful. They'll know how to survive." Just then, they heard voices, muffled but unmistakable. "Over there." Mark pointed toward a clearing where the sounds were coming from. They moved cautiously, peeking through the trees. In the clearing, they saw a group of familiar faces, Eli, along with several others, huddled around a small fire. "They're alive!" Claire exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. Without hesitation, they emerged from the trees, calling out to their friends. "Eli, it's us." Eli turned, eyes widening in surprise. "Sarah, Mark, Claire, thank God." As they rushed into the clearing, hugs and words of relief flew around them. "What happened?" Sarah asked, scanning the group. "We thought we lost you." Eli's expression darkened. "We were overrun. We had to flee before we were trapped inside. We thought we'd lost you too. We managed to gather some supplies," Mark explained. "But it was a close call." "Thank goodness you're okay," Eli said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We need to regroup and come up with a plan. We can't stay out here long. The zombies will be drawn to the noise." As they settled around the fire, the weight of the last few hours began to lift. They shared their stories, piecing together what had happened. "The church has been compromised," Eli concluded. "We need to find a new safe haven, and quickly." "What about the fortified church you mentioned before?" Claire asked, hope rekindling. Eli nodded. "We can head there together, but we'll need to be stealthy. If we stick together, we have a better chance." "Then let's move when the sun starts to rise," Sarah said, determination flooding her. "We've made it this far. We can't stop now." With a renewed sense of purpose, they gathered their supplies and prepared to leave the clearing, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead. Together, they would find safety and survival no matter what it took. As the sun started to rise in the sky, casting long shadows through the trees, Sarah and the group gathered their supplies and readied themselves for the journey ahead. The sense of urgency heightened as they prepared to leave their temporary refuge. "Everyone listen up," Eli said, addressing the group. "We need to stick together and move quietly. Keep an eye out for any signs of zombies or other threats." With a shared nod, they set out, moving cautiously through the dense forest. Sarah led the way, her senses heightened, listening for any sounds that might indicate danger. As they traveled, the camaraderie among them strengthened. They exchanged stories about their lives before the outbreak, finding solace in shared memories. Laughter broke the tension, a reminder of their humanity amidst the chaos. "We used to have family game nights," Claire said, a wistful smile on her face. "I never thought I'd miss Monopoly so much." Mark chuckled. "I always cheated at that game. You'd be surprised how many times I made it to Boardwalk without paying rent." The group laughed, but the sound was quickly hushed as they approached a clearing. Ahead lay the road, and beyond it, the silhouette of the fortified church loomed in the fading light. "Stay low," Eli instructed as they crept forward, peering through the underbrush. "Let's see if the coast is clear." They scanned the area, and for a moment it seemed eerily quiet. But just as they prepared to cross, a distant moan echoed through the trees. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her heart racing. "Yeah," Mark replied, his expression tense. "We need to move now." Eli nodded. "We can't linger. On my count. 1, 2, 3. They darted across the road, hearts pounding as they reached the edge of the church property. The structure stood tall and imposing, its fortified walls offering a glimmer of hope. "Let's find a way in," Eli said, leading the way toward a side entrance. As they approached, they noticed that the door was slightly ajar, just as the main church had been. Anxiety gripped Sarah. "Do you think it's safe?" Eli pushed the door open slowly, peering inside. The interior was dark, and shadows flickered against the walls. "We'll have to check. Stay close." They entered cautiously, the heavy scent of wood and dust filling the air. Inside, the church was dimly lit by the few remaining candles, and the atmosphere felt tense. "Hello!" Eli called out, his voice echoing in the silence. "Is anyone here?" There was no answer. They moved deeper into the building, their footsteps muffled by the worn carpet. As they explored the main hall, Sarah's unease grew. It felt abandoned, but there were signs of recent activity. Scattered supplies, a fire pit in the center, and remnants of meals. "Looks like someone was here recently," Claire said, kneeling to examine a half-empty can of food. Eli nodded, frowning. "We should split up and search the building. We need to find any survivors and secure the place." "Be careful," Sarah cautioned. "We don't know what we're up against." They agreed on a plan. Eli would take a group to the upper levels while Sarah, Mark, and Claire searched the lower floors. As they split up, Sarah felt a wave of apprehension wash over her. "Let's check the kitchen first," Mark suggested, leading the way. They moved quietly through the corridors, peering into empty rooms, searching for signs of life. The kitchen was dim, but they found enough supplies to last a few days. Canned goods, dried herbs, and some bottles of water. "Not bad," Claire said, relief evident in her voice. "We could make this work." Just then, a loud crash echoed from the upper floors, followed by shouting. "Eli!" Sarah exclaimed, her heart racing. "We need to get back to them." They rushed toward the stairs, adrenaline coursing through them. As they ascended, the sounds of chaos grew louder. They reached the landing just as Eli and his group emerged, a look of panic on their faces. "Get back!" Eli shouted, pushing them toward the stairs. "There are too many." Sarah's heart dropped as she caught sight of the zombies pouring down the hallway, drawn by the noise. "We can't let them surround us." "Back to the main hall," Eli commanded, and they all sprinted down the stairs, fear driving them forward. They burst into the main hall, slamming the heavy doors shut behind them. The sound of moaning echoed outside, and they quickly barricaded the door with pews and other debris. "Are you all okay?" Eli panted, his face flushed. "Yeah, but there were so many up there," Mark replied, glancing back at the door. "What do we do now?" "We hold this position," Eli said, catching his breath. "We can't let them break through. We need to come up with a plan to escape." "Can we make it to the back?" Sarah suggested, looking around for another exit. "There might be a way out." Eli nodded. "If we can find a window or another door, we might stand a chance." "Let's check the side rooms," Claire suggested, her voice steady despite the tension. They moved cautiously through the church, searching each room for an escape route. As they explored, the sounds of zombies grew louder, and the weight of fear pressed down on them. "Over here," Sarah called, finding a small door leading to a narrow hallway. "This might lead us to a side exit." They hurried down the hallway, the echoes of the undead growing ever closer. The dim light revealed another door at the end, and Sarah felt a surge of hope. "Let's go," Eli urged as they reached the door. He pushed it open, revealing a small storage area filled with old supplies. "Looks like we might find something useful," Mark said, rummaging through the boxes. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the main hall, followed by the unmistakable sound of splintering wood. The barricade wouldn't hold for long. "Move! We need to find a way out," Sarah urged, her heart racing. Eli spotted a small window near the ceiling. "We can climb up there. It might lead to the outside." "Let's do it," Claire said, adrenaline surging. They quickly worked together, stacking boxes and crates beneath the window. As Sarah climbed up, she glanced back at the door, which was now shaking violently under the pressure of the zombies. Come on, Mark shouted, pushing her forward. Hurry! She scrambled through the window, landing outside with a soft thud. As the others followed, they saw a small yard behind the church, surrounded by a tall fence. Where do we go from here? Claire panted, looking around. We need to find a way over the fence, Eli said, glancing back at the church. They'll be out soon. They quickly searched the yard, spotting a gap in the fence where it had fallen. This way, Sarah led them toward the opening. Just as they slipped through, the sound of zombies filled the air, their groans echoing behind them. Run! Eli shouted as they sprinted into the woods, their hearts pounding. They didn't stop until they reached a small thicket, breathing heavily and listening for any signs of pursuit. Did we lose them? Mark asked, glancing back toward the church. For now, Eli replied, catching his breath. But we need to keep moving. Where do we go? Claire asked, her voice shaky. Sarah looked around at her friends, determination filling her. We keep searching for a safe place. Together, we can't give up. With a shared sense of resolve, they pressed on, the shadows of the trees enveloping them as they ventured deeper into the woods. They would find safety again, and they would face whatever came next, side by side. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please let me know down below what kind of stories you would like to hear more from. Like and subscribe if you're into scary stories like me. Stay safe and you'll hear me tomorrow with the final part of this story.